back to Salem. I am your host, Pat. So, I was thinking to myself, since I got the sick haul from my friend Jason at Get Into It with Jason Hook, I'm just going to talk about a couple of the CDs that were in that massive pile that he gave me. Right now, before I get into all that, we're listening to the Ground Zero Salem mixtape. I've been constantly dubbing these, just letting her rip and then going back upstairs. This is the last of the 2-hour tapes. I think I made 7 total that I'm sending out to various friends from the YouTube extreme metal vinyl community, or whatever you want to call it. After this there will be more, but they're all going to be 110 minutes, so I'm going to chop a few songs. Not going to spoil the covers yet. Probably soon. I'm pretty proud with the way they came out with actual printable J-card covers and some nice stickers on the tapes, the shells themselves, and fold-out inserts, and they're all kind of different from... No two are the same. They're all special snowflakes like all of us. Not on purpose, but just because my printer kind of sucks, and you know, I'm not disciplined enough to make them all uniform, so they're all unique. So that'll be playing in the background. Before I get into a little bit of my grind haul, this will be kind of a short update. I just had a couple things I wanted to talk about. I always have a couple corrections usually, because I have a tendency to fuck things up. I'd like to think it's part of my charm. This band, this thrash band, one of the great LPs that I picked up down in Mars, their name is Mandator, not Manotaur. Fans of long-running Adult Swim, excellent cartoon, The Venture Brothers, would probably snicker at the name Manotaur a little bit. If you know, you know. So anyway, yeah, great thrash record. Kind of cleaner, more melodic parts, but pretty aggressive. Really good stuff. Believe they're German. So anyway, Mandator, not Manotaur. What are you gonna do? So I got this huge pile of grind and a little bit of death metal, a lot of fastcore, and a bunch of other stuff. Mostly on 7 inches, but a good stack of CDs. Interesting mix of stuff. You know, I got a Back of the Neck CD. I got a Slapshot CD, the original Biohazard, self-titled, which is great. I love it. But I also got some late 90s, early 2000s kind of death grindish kind of stuff. And it kind of brought back a bunch of memories for me, because when I was living in Lewiston, Maine, between 2001 and early 2003, about a year and a half, I was subjected to tons of this stuff via my roommate Ben. And just to kind of encapsulate the time, I was really into grindy, deathy, deep grunting vocal kind of stuff for a while. I was in a kind of a metallic crust band called Class Action for a few years here in Boston, and I burnt out on stuff with like those kinds of vocals and that level of aggression. At the time, there was a big resurgence in 80s style hardcore from about 99 to maybe 2002, 2003. And at this time, I completely fell in love with bands like Tear It Up, Nine Shocks Terror. I don't care for them much these days, but I was a big fan of the band Rambo. Even then, I had some correspondence for a distro with, I believe it was Damian Abraham from Fucked Up. They were getting started back then. So just all this stripped down, early 80s style hardcore I was really feeling more than anything else. My roommate Ben was a complete nut for all this kind of Razorback Records, what Relapse was doing at the time, a lot of Carcass Worship, you know, a lot of that stuff, like Goregrind, the beginning, when Goregrind was still pretty good, you know, not quite hit the brutal death slam kind of thing yet. So I got these CDs, and they reminded me of what Ben was listening to at the time, and I completely burnt out of it by the time I moved out of Maine. There were a few bands that I liked, that I had their CDs and I listened to. I think I was into the self-titled Engorged CD. I think I had a Fuck Ellipsis, I'm Dead. The Australian with a drum machine grind band. I liked them okay. What else did I? Birdflesh, I was a fan of. So it was kind of an interesting way for me, now that I'm like completely knee deep in just brutality. I'm just like listening to all this death metal and stuff. Kind of got back into death metal and black metal and heavier, more intense stuff about 10 years ago. But I kind of gave this type of stuff a wide berth for a while. And now I'm revisiting it with pretty fresh ears and enjoying it. So there's, looks like just 3 CDs I want to talk about, and then I'll get out of your hair. Start with one of my favorite ones from the lot. I saw it at the top of the stack at Jason's, and I got pretty stoked. It's the first Razorback Records compilation, Gore Is Your Master, compilation number 1. I was kind of poring over this a few days ago when I brought the stack home, and I was looking at it, looking at the song titles and stuff in my living room. Went to go grab something from the kitchen briefly, and my 14-month-old son Griffin was running around holding the inserts, and I was, for one thing, you don't want a toddler touching this CD, just gross. And I was also worried that like it got fucked up, but it didn't. I played it in the car, and I'm kind of kicking myself for just kind of writing this stuff off because I was too into early 80s hardcore worship at the time. I just heard this stuff constantly from Ben and just was sick of it. But yeah, I mean, there's some classic bands on here that, I mean, it's kind of a who's who of like extreme sounds of the time, Engorged is on here, who I just mentioned, Impaled, Intense Hammer Rage, Sanity's Dawn, which might be my favorite track on here, just great death grind stuff. Very early Origin track. We got a bunch of stuff that I have no idea, never heard of these bands. Bastion, Rigor Sardonicus, 4 Seats for Invalids, spelled in the French way. Traumatism. Yeah, I mean, there's some great stuff on here. I mean, particularly this Engorged song, Cobra Hiss. I mean, they were a band that combined thrash metal and that early Carcass worship in a way that, I mean, I don't know. Like, Exhumed gets all the credit for that, but they did it just as well in a slightly different manner, and I think they gave Exhumed a run for their money. Regurgitation is the first song on here, and that was another one. I was just spinning this in the car before I got here. This is Regurgitation, Effortless Regurgitation, Regurgitate. No more flubs, Wilding. Regurgitate with Effortless Regurgitation. Oh, and this is a band called Regurgitation, so I'm assuming that's somebody different. Whatever. One thing I will mention to those receiving a tape is that the volume levels, I tried to keep them uniform, but when you're dubbing from multiple formats, there's going to be some variations, so be prepared to adjust your volumes accordingly. But Regurgitate with Effortless Regurgitation. And I remember this coming out and just being like, what the fuck? Like, thinking it was pretty much brainless grind. There's 63 songs on this. It's a lot of songs. I mean, even if a lot of them are under a minute, fuck, that's a lot of music to listen to. And it's awesome. It obviously borrows a lot from early Carcass, particularly the first 2 full lengths, Recomputerefaction, and the other one that I can't think of right now because I'm brain farting and got off a 12-hour shift. Whitefield Vinyl, You Feel My Pain. That guy, Whitefield Vinyl, I just saw in his latest update, he brain farted who Hellhammer was. New dads, destroys your memory. It'll come to me later, and, whatever. Of course, we all know what the second Carcass LP is. Anyhow, borrows heavily from those 2. there's a little bit, I feel like a little bit more like almost punkish, D-beat-ish Discharge stuff in there, but again, you know, that's my opinion. They're like assholes. This is great. It's super good. Something I passed up, ignored back then. Another one that Ben was super into at the time, Symphonies of Sickness. Second Carcass record. Another one that Ben was super into at the time was Dead Infection, and I just remember rolling my eyes at it. And that wasn't part of this stack. Trying to remember which Dead Infection it was, the one with like the surgery room or whatever. But I remember rolling my eyes at it and being like, oh, this is just garbage, you know, these gurgly vocals, blah blah blah. And been pulling that up on YouTube and like kind of seeing how much is this on Discogs, you know. I'm trying to curb buying too much shit just because I'll never catch up at this rate. I've been getting so much awesome free shit from cool people, and I got a bunch of stuff coming in the mail as per usual. So, but yeah, Regurgitate. This was on Relapse, of course. Yes, weird transitionary period for Relapse. I mean, Relapse was my go-to label when I was wicked young, getting into death metal for the most extreme stuff. And at this time, I mean, they had Embalmer, they had Regurgitate, or, you know, the early Exhumed stuff that was coming out. But, you know, they were re-releasing, unearthing that 70s Pentagram material. They were putting out the earliest Mastodon stuff. They were definitely expanding. I think they were doing some Neurosis stuff, Neurosis-related projects, and Neurosis as well. So yeah, I just remember seeing the ads, and I know it was a big changing of the guard. I know a lot of the people that ran the label kind of left and stuff too. So yeah, interesting time. You know, I think Razorback probably picked up the slack for just like purely underground shit at the time that was just extreme and blasting. Speaking of extreme and blasting, I saw this cover and it brought back a flood of fucking memories. Phobia. Serenity Through Pain. Came out in 2001. I don't know if it was technically their second full length. Came after Means of Existence. I don't know what was in between, if anything. Pretty sure it came right after it as far as full lengths go. But at any rate, I remember hearing this and being like, this is where I lost the plot with Phobia. And I mean, I like it now better than I did then. Gave it a bunch of spins in the car, and it is a very good record. All the songs stand on their own. There's no like mushing together and you know, songs running into each other and sounding the same, I don't think. But there's something lacking in the production for me. It's overall kind of thin, in my humble opinion. And the drums on it just sound like the dude's hitting wicked light, and they're really tappy sounding. Not like the Scott Burns, you know, typewriter double bass trigger drum kind of tappy. It sounds like the snare hits are tappy. I don't know. I think they might have gotten a new drummer. I'm not sure. One thing about the drummer, it's like, okay, we got a bunch of gnarly dudes, gnarly crusty dudes, you know, Southern California, backwards snapback there. And then we, you know, this guy come from American Nightmare, or what's going on there? Who knows? It's a good record, you know, but yeah, the tappiness of the drums, the production seems kind of thin. I mean, it's not like the guitars are like not heavy or not full relatively, but they seem a lot more, I guess, the tone seems a lot more processed or something than their earlier raw material. And Means of Existence was on Slap a Ham, and it was just sonically in your fucking face. That record is unfuckwithable, in my opinion. Yeah, so I don't know. I like I said, like, I'm enjoying this a lot more now that my ears are more attuned to, you know, more guttural vocals, and I'm kind of feeling a lot of heavier stuff. It's kind of nice because I'm at a time in my life where I have no prejudice whatsoever to my listening. I can listen to the heavy grindy stuff. I can listen to poppy shit. garagey stuff. I'm totally always in the mood for scrappy, fast, early 80s hardcore. So that's cool. But that's it, really. I just wanted to talk about how a lot of this was a walk down memory lane, kind of a second chance to get into this stuff. And there always was, like, kind of in the back of my mind, like, all these early Razorback bands. I kind of lumped them in my brain with, like, newer slam, death, pig squeal bands. And they might have been the very beginning of that stuff, but it's definitely a completely different animal. And a lot of these bands are fucking great. I got a bunch of more CDs of this style that I haven't really dug into yet. Very excited. I got the Exit 13, which I had it in front of me. I'd show it off, whatever. The Exit 13 Hemdale split, which is like the Exit 13 cover is like a guy holding up like a tray with a beer on it. That's another one that just hit me in the emotional memory recall banks, you know. Fucking really, really cool. So yeah, just a quick update, me talking about early 2000s grindcore a little bit. So yeah, if you haven't had a chance to check out Jason Hook's videos and subscribe yet, go ahead and do that. He's got a great video right now about just a bunch of his records, mostly pretty much all hardcore and punk stuff, but great personal anecdotes, really informative stuff about pressings and all that without it being nerdy or boring. Very, very cool stuff, very cool guy. To all my friends out there in YouTube land, you probably have a tape coming sooner or later. It's been fun making these. Not so much fun constantly dubbing them, but hey, you know, that's part of the whole shtick. You know, it's a lot more work than sending a playlist, and I think it means a lot more. But yeah, check your mailboxes, tubers. Till next time, Pat Wilding out.